Hello and welcome everyone to today's show, and we are super excited to be introducing you to our guest today, Nina Verkooyen, who is a psychologist, spiritual leader, and the founder of Meta Spirituality, an emerging spiritual tradition that supersedes the old New Age spirituality. Now, Nina has been teaching spirituality, meditation, and yoga for more than 15 years. She's appeared twice on the cover of Yoga Journal in Russia, New Yoga Magazine USA, and has been called a Teacher of the Month on Magazine in the UK. She has presented her methods for mind and body transformation at Yoga Journal Conference in the US and has been featured in numerous worldwide publications. And we are super excited to have her here today. So Nina, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure. Thank you.
You are most welcome, and that's such an intro. You've been one busy lady, that's for sure. So I'd love for you to just start off by introducing yourself. Tell our listeners a little bit about you. How did your journey lead you to where you are today?
Well, I believe my conscious path, spiritual path, started at the age of 11 when I created my own method of meditation. It's actually a funny story. My mom, she was into spirituality and esoterics and astrology, all things like that. She went to a spiritual meeting and she was given a mantra and she was taught how to meditate for the first time. And when she got home, she announced the news to me. She said, now I have my personal mantra for meditation and I don't want to be disturbed. I'm going to go now to my room and meditate. And you, Nina, stay in your room and please be quiet. I felt so humiliated because I told Mom, please give me this mantra. I also want to try the meditation that you were taught. And this is the first time we both heard the word meditation. So we both never tried it before, but I was so curious. I wanted to do it, but she refused to give it to me. She said that the teacher who gave the mantra to her said that it's prohibited to share this mantra. So I was very upset and I went to my room and I said to myself, okay, I will pick any word and I will do that too. She kind of roughly told me what it is about. She needs to repeat the word and close her eyes and sit like that. So I picked the first word. I believe that was some random word like matches, like lightning matches. And I started repeating it to myself like many, many times with my eyes closed. And suddenly, out of the blue, I felt something very different. I felt this spontaneous expansion, and I definitely felt very different. And I realized that I am in this meditation, like a state of mind that was mind-blowing for me. That was actually the first glimpse of this understanding that the power is within us and not in external things, right? So when my mom came out of her room saying that her meditation wasn't really successful, she didn't feel anything, I said, no, I actually did. It actually worked. So she was completely surprised. And that was the first like pivotal moment in my conscious memory of my spiritual past. And since then, there were so many different ones. And I created dozens of methods for mind and body transformation, several meditation techniques since then. For 15 years, I've been teaching meditation, yoga, spirituality, spiritual practices. I myself tried everything under the sun. I studied with different teachers in Asia and on the West and tried different spiritual practices, learned ancient texts. So it has been a very long journey, but interestingly enough, I never felt that my journeys is fulfilled, is like coming to some type of conclusion. So I always felt that there is a missing puzzle that I'm still looking for. And that was actually, you know, not a very good feeling. I thought maybe my mind of a seeker that is never fulfilled will just never stop learning, will never stop seeking for something. And at some point, I think I got very disappointed in all the methods because I knew so much, I learned so much, I experienced so many different spiritual moments, but still, if I look at my life, nothing really radically changed. I still had problems in relationships, in my personal relationships. I still struggled with making money properly. Basically in all areas of my life, I still saw where it needs improvement. And at some point I thought to myself, maybe this is how it should be, because old spirituality tells us that our search never ends and our life is a school, and these life lessons, they never stop. So I was like, well, okay, I guess that's it. I guess I just have to accept it and be okay with this feeling that something is missing and I need to find it. I need to find it. And everybody around me were telling me, oh, this is just your seeker's mind. You will never be fulfilled. This is the ego mind. It's never happy. And I gave up. I gave up my search, like consciously. I went to one of the islands on the Bahamas for so-called inner retreat. I just stopped teaching for some period of time and was just living an ordinary life. And then suddenly, out of the blue, one evening in 2016, something completely extraordinary happened, which basically was a mark that divided my life to a before and after. Complete rebirth, I would say, for me and for the students of mine that I shared this knowledge that came to me after. So I don't know if you want to guys hear this story, or it's a little bit too much already of me talking here. So
no, I would love to hear that story. Just before we jump into that though, I'd really love for you to just tell us a little bit more about that period where you essentially started to resign yourself to the fact that there's always going to be something missing, because a lot of our listeners feel that way, right? And you know, to me, I see that as a form of like spiritual crisis, right? It's when we kind of start to lose a bit of touch with who we are, where we're going, and you know, the ground underneath us shakes a little bit when we're going through that. So I'd love to hear your take on that and how you was able to navigate it before you had this pivotal experience that you're going to share.
Yeah, you know, I couldn't navigate it. I couldn't. I was very disappointed, and it was a gradual, long-term process. It wasn't just one day. It was years of me trying, seeking, changing teachers, changing practices, traveling all over the world, looking for something, going to places of power and spiritual places. Everything that you can possibly try on a spiritual path, I tasted it, but I always had this bitter aftertaste after the initial excitement and the initial, you know, like inspiration you get from something new, a new teaching, new knowledge, new teacher. After a few months or weeks, sometimes days, you feel that no, I am still the same. The root, kind of the core of me is still the same. My mind is still the same, regardless of how many hours in meditation I sit. I stand up and I'm the same person with the same problems. And yes, it did teach me how to be a little bit less reactive in conversations, a little bit less, you know, something, but still nothing radically changed. And I always had this intuitive feeling that there should be a solution. There should be something that will eliminate our inner struggle, you know, to the core, and will actually make a difference. So I was looking, I was searching, I was getting more and more upset with each day until I gave up, basically. And that's when I surrendered and I stopped going after and chase after those external practices, methods, teachers, authorities, guides, angels to talk to, whatever it was. And I was forced to turn 180 degrees and look within, because I couldn't find anything on the outside. So if I look back at all my life, actually, this type of adversity has always been something that turns me within. It's like when I couldn't find information on the inner aspects of yoga, because I was teaching yoga for many years, I was looking everywhere again, information on the energetics of yoga. I couldn't find it anywhere. No teacher would tell me about that. I had to look within and pull that knowledge from the inside, from my own practice, from my own inner focused gaze into the inner self. And I wrote a book, The Energetics of Yoga, which became a bestseller. For many years, it was on the shelves of many countries. And that's how I started to realize that that's how the knowledge comes from, the truth comes from. Same with this bigger spiritual surge that I had all my life. The more disappointed I was getting on the path, the more I was looking within. And then when I completely gave up looking at external things or people, authorities, then this thing happened. I think I kind of emptied space of that glass in order for it to be finally filled with my inner wisdom, our inner wisdom, basically, because meta spirituality believes that we are all one. There are no separate souls. There's no duality on a higher level of existence. And this one shared soul that we are, basically, that's what I can say. That's what we are. But as long as we are looking on the outside, we are not seeing that. So sometimes life turns us and upsets us, and we start actually looking in a proper direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Like what you said, 100% spot on. Is so many people are chasing, trying to find a solution when the answer is in front of them the whole time. The only problem is we don't see it because they don't take the time to step back, surrender, and just see what happens. You know, and when they like did what you did, you stop chasing. You stop trying to look for all these external solutions, and you just surrender to it, step back and go, okay, I'm not looking anymore. And then you start to see different opportunities, you start to see different things in different ways, and you start to realize the solutions in front of you the whole time. But because you've been so focused in going in one direction, trying to find this specific solution, you've completely missed the solution that's right in front of you all the time. And that solution is within. It's like you have the answer. You just have to tap into that and be able to listen to yourself instead of listening to all the noise that is around you. I think it's just so powerful. That art of surrender is just so powerful. Remember the many times where I used to be a doer. I like to do. So that's what you got. Okay, I've finished one thing. What's next? What's next? And when I finally got to the point of being able to just kind of step back out of it, and you start to realize you can actually get a lot more done in a short space of time, feeling more energized and not focusing on the external, and you still be able to keep your internal world healthy, energized, and resourceful as well. So that whole surrendering and or like the quote unquote giving up is what I think a lot of people need to start to adopt as a practice, and then they'll start to find the solution that's been there all along.
So right. I'm curious to know your thoughts, Nina, for anyone that's listening that's struggling to get to that point of surrender so they can turn to look inwards. What are your thoughts on that? Because often, obviously, we see the pattern over time is that we wait for something pretty significant to happen before we do that. Do you think that everybody has to get to that point before they truly look inside, or do you think there's a choice that people can actually like listen to a podcast like this and be like, oh, that seems like a smart idea, let's give it a go? Like what's your thoughts on surrender?
Yeah, you see, the old scenario was that we wait for the crisis in order to start changing within. And actually, according to meta spirituality, we create the crisis on the outside in order to inflict change within, because we are the creator and we create everything that is around us. Everything around is our creation, and it doesn't exclude anything. It doesn't exclude any crisis. So when we don't have enough either inner motivation to change or something else like that, we create crisis on the outside, which forces us to start changing something. But that was this old scenario that I feel that we are collectively graduating from. And that's why meta spirituality comes into play now, because we are getting ready for a new perspective. And this new perspective is this understanding that because we are the creator, we can cancel our life lessons, otherwise they will never end. And we are the ones who prescribe those lessons to ourselves. And we don't have to learn through adversity and through crisis. We can and should, I feel this is our spiritual duty, our new task, let's say, that we learn from just inner motivation, from this conscious understanding that our function as a creator is to expand, like always expand in universe. We need to expand, we need to grow, we need to go through many different experiences, but they don't have to be negative necessarily. We can also grow from happiness, from mutual, respectful, loving relationships. We don't have to grow through crisis all the time. And this is both a choice and a necessity for others. So it depends on a person. Everything is a choice. But some people will choose to wait until there's no other way than to face something. But that's why meta spirituality is here. That's why I'm trying to promote this new tradition that will guide people in a different direction.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more about your mission of meta spirituality?
Yeah, this is actually what we just talked about, giving spiritual seekers a new way to be on their spiritual path, a new perception. I would even say a new identity of, I call it meta self, like a bridge between the creator and human. The relationship between the two, the relationship that hasn't been developed yet, that's why there's no such identity yet. It self-creates in the process of establishing this relationship between God and human. So this meta self is the self which has new eyes and new perception of oneness, where it understands that everything on the outside is a reflection, but not in a, like a symbolical way. Because many people, many teachers say we are all one. What does it change? It doesn't change anything. It's more like a phrase, a speech, kind of expression. We are one, so what? And then we still divide. We still divide teachers and students. We still use intermediaries such as affirmations, channeling, visualizations, and all sorts of techniques. So meta spirituality doesn't use intermediaries. It helps you develop a direct relationship with the creator inside of you, who is you. So we are ready for that. And I feel that's what we are seeking for collectively. We are ready to take this full responsibility, because what the creator is and what its main function is, it's full responsibility. When you take ownership of everything that's around you, you take full responsibility for everything that's happening within and without you, you become the creator. We cannot change anything that is separate from us. If we live and we perceive others and life as something separate from us, we can't change it. We can't influence it, we can't control it. We try, of course, we try to control others, we try to control circumstances, but this is not getting us anywhere. So there is another way to look on everything through the eyes of this meta self, through the eyes of oneness. And when you know that everything is you, you become capable of actually influencing what is you, what is within your self. And it's a very interesting process.
So what does that look like practically? So for our listeners that are here and they're thinking, okay, well, this is making some sense, and they like this idea of New Age spirituality, and they're really buying into what you're talking about. How do they then implement this? What does that look like practically in somebody's life?
Oh, it's a difficult thing to try to explain in this format, because, as I said, we need to develop a relationship, and it's not a magic pill that you take. We are used to taking those magic pills, and we are hooked on I don't know, like life hacks, quick solutions, quick fixes. But this is not it. Meta spirituality will not magically in 1 second change your life, but it will radically, if you take a little bit of time, just a couple weeks, to basically understand what it means to change your perception, how to change it. So I also provide people with free, like, introductory lecture on meta spirituality, which they can get on my website, on the main page of my website, so that they understand if this is something for them, if they resonate with it. They can feel whether they are ready for it or not yet, because some people are not yet. Practically speaking, when you change your identity, when you change what you self-identify with, you truly start seeing everything through different eyes. And when you see something from a different perspective, you change things, because the way things are created is by perceiving them. So the other world is this world seen and perceived differently. Remember from the physics, the observer, by the act of looking at something, changes what he looks at. Same applies here. There's no practical tool, there are no instructions, do this, you'll get that. But when you change the perception, when you start looking through the eyes of a new identity that you identify with, the way of perceiving things differently is something that changes things on the outside. So the way we perceive anything is the way we create it, the way we change it.
Yeah.
So it's all about that.
Yeah, I love that you bring it back to identity being a main piece. Obviously, perception and the way we perceive things, but the way we see ourselves initially will start to kickstart everything else, right? If I live by the belief and I identify with the understanding that we are all one at the highest level, then my actions, my behaviors, my thoughts, my emotions, everything will start to gradually fall in line with that. So anybody listening, I think, check with your belief system. What do you actually believe? Because there'll be people listening to this that are like me. Unfortunately, when I was 11, I didn't have anybody teaching me about meditation, and it took me a long time to really actually do an audit on who am I and like what do I actually believe. And it took a bit too long in my eyes to get to that point. Obviously, it's worked out as it's supposed to, but the reality is sometimes we actually have to consciously sit down and check this stuff, right? And audit ourselves to check what do we believe and what do we want for the future.
Mm-hmm. You know, I would add something here. When we are ready on the inside, when we are ready to stop the chase, when we are getting ready to a truly big change in our life, in our perception, we feel it. Mm. The truth inside us wants to be revealed. Has always been like that. So when somebody who is watching now this interview or listening to this podcast feels resonance, feels this resonance with the words we're saying here, I would just say, go for it. try this, listen to the introductory lecture and see if you want to go even deeper. Just basically sitting and thinking about our own beliefs is great, but isn't it not what we were doing this whole time? And it doesn't really, again, change anything. But when we identify with our separate ego mind, we try to do the self-work. We try to work on our beliefs. We try to work on our destructive mental programs, but we are within the ego mind. So we are inside of something that we want to change, and we can't change our ego mind. It's impossible. The main function of the ego mind is to sustain the illusion of separation from the outside world, from other people. This is its function. The function of the ego mind is to sustain separation so that we could function here in this body. And doing this self-work, trying to think even about our own beliefs, about our own mental programs, it is helpful. It makes us more conscious, but it doesn't give us a solution. So meta spirituality, which is very difficult to understand from these first few words, but it gives you a radically different way of growing. It doesn't include self-work. We are actually truly graduating from self-work. We start seeing things differently, and we realize that everything that we prescribed to ourselves and believed in, including all our so-called traumas, so-called destructive mental programs, we can transcend it. We don't need to work on them anymore, because working on them doesn't actually work, but we can transcend it, for the better word. And it is truly difficult to explain here in a practical way, because this is not about, you know, showing you practically how it works. It's a shift in perception.
Yeah, definitely. And I hear that for sure. And I think it's just, I just want to like really bridge the gap between our listeners and that level of thinking, right? Or experiencing. Because that's where I think there's a true sticking point sometimes, especially obviously when it comes to releasing stress. And you mentioned their traumas. For our listeners that might have been experiencing some traumas or been struggling with that work, it's great for them to hear that there are alternative methods that they can start to look into. So I think that's really, really powerful.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, definitely. I said any method that can help you to kind of step out of that state of stress, anxiety they're experiencing, and tap into those higher levels of consciousness is only gonna, I think, make more of an impact in the lives of them, well, their lives, but also the lives of people around them. And what I want to touch on is your goal that you mentioned on your website for Meta Spirituality, which is about affecting the consciousness of millions of people, and what he calls a collective graduation from living in a partial truth and fragmented knowledge of old spirituality and religion. Tell us a little bit more about this goal. Like, can you touch on this and go a little bit deeper on this for us? What does that mean?
So as we discuss this, I believe that all the spiritual practices, methods, techniques, they are but stepping stones for all of us to get to know the last truth of who we are. And I think this is where we are all going to. We are entering the era of union, and this truth, it wants to be revealed, finally. So before, we were more like kids that like to play with different ideas, different toys, exploring what is what, and we liked to play with struggle. We liked to learn through struggle. But right now, I think we are all slowly but steadily getting fed up with it. And we realize that having this belief in life as a school, where you need to constantly learn from tough life lessons. It's basically, it's so taxing, and it's never ending. It's never ending. And we start feeling more and more upset with this old way of learning, and we kind of intrinsically want the truth to be revealed. So more and more people will seek for this new alternative, will seek for this new approach, new identity, new, the truth of who they are. And you can apply oneness very practically. It's just truly difficult to explain in such a setting, you know, when we can't truly go really deep. It would take hours, but it is a very practical tradition, very practical knowledge. And actually, I even believe that the only true identifier, the only true indicator of how true spiritual knowledge is physical, material change. So if you apply some spiritual knowledge to something and your life doesn't change, your finances still not in a good shape, your relationship to somebody is not in a good shape, then the knowledge that you are believing in is not ideal. It's not actually true knowledge. True knowledge changes everything and changes quickly. The moment we actually see things differently, everything changes based on this law of meta spirituality, that the way we see things is the way we create them, the way we change them. So I feel that we are all now seeking for this new way of having a direct relationship with the Creator inside us. We will start dropping those tools like visualizations, affirmations, channeling, or we will still use them, but we will know that we are channeling ourselves. We are talking to ourselves. We will stop giving away our responsibility, our power to the third parties. And by that, we will change every area of our life. Because when we become truly, in a positive way, responsible for everything, when we stop blaming others, when we stop waiting for some higher forces to do something in our life and with our life, we take full responsibility, and that's when change happens. We become way more mature. So this approach helps you way quicker and more efficiently than even basic psychology. I'm a psychologist, I graduated from psychology, and I can with confidence say that this helps quicker and makes you more mature person way quicker. This one understanding.
So what impact do you think meta spirituality will have on the world? So anyone who taps into their truth, seeking that truth and really taking their responsibility, what impact do you think that will have on the world around us?
You will see immediate change in every area of your life. As I said, it cannot not change. When you change, everything changes. When you don't change, everything will be still the same. When we start perceiving life through the eyes of oneness and non-separateness, all the conflict, all the wars, all the problems will disappear. We will stop, or we will definitely create less of the external crisis. We will have no need for that. You see, we need external crisis when we believe in the outside forces. When we believe there's higher forces, if we believe there is karma, if we believe there is something on the outside that is our fate, that teaches us something, or some higher God that prescribes life lessons to us, we live in the position of a victim, in a passive position, and we don't take ownership of everything that's happening in our life. So when we drop that idea, this alone changes a lot in every aspect of our life, in the way we deal with personal relationships, how we bring more responsibility there, how we stop being in the victimhood, how we stop blaming others. Again, this is a very practical knowledge that changes everything. We cannot fight, we cannot blame, we cannot hate if we know that this is a reflection in the mirror, like literally, not just a phrase, you know, literally. If you are me, it will be very difficult for me to blame you, to hate you. So on a scale of human emotion, we will not go all the way down where people usually fall. When you remember who you are, and when you remember see everything through the eyes of oneness, you will maybe get upset a little bit, but then you bring yourself back to the truth of who you are, and you remember and you realize that you are the one who creates that, and not, you don't blame yourself for that. Oh, I created that, it's my fault. No, you don't go there. You actually see and understand that you do it for yourself because this is what's best for you. This is what helping you. And you start seeing those parallels between what's happening on the outside and inside. So this is a very interesting process that changes everything.
Absolutely. It's interesting because we see this with our clients, and I believe on our journeys too, is that we move from that victimhood, we move into responsibility, but one of the blind spots with responsibility, like you just touched on there, is that we can then turn that blame inward, right? And then there's shame attached and people beating themselves up and this kind of mentality. But then it's about moving from that place of responsibility to being empowered, right? And embodying that power. And I'm kind of hearing the way you're speaking to me, that power is the truth of who we are, right? That is that one and God is one and the same. And I think it's when we start to devote ourselves to that through our lifestyle, right? That's when we're not reaching for this practice or that practice, or I have to do this and then I can feel like that, right? It's that we're starting to actually truly adopt who it is we are, but not in the sense of I'm Charlotte and I'm co-founder of Wellness Theory, like outside of titles, outside of that external identity, right? It's about coming back to, okay, well, what is your nature? What's your essence? What does that look like? What does it feel like? And I really want to pick up on one of the words you used earlier, which was resonance. Is anybody listening to this and they resonate, that feeling is the truth, isn't it? That's the truth of who they are. Would you agree, or do you feel like I'm a bit off the mark?
I absolutely agree. Yes, yeah. I absolutely agree. Yes, when we stop waiting for something or someone to change our life, when we stop being in this passive position, when we stop believing in higher forces, external gods, we become God and we become powerful. We bring the power back in a positive way. So it really changes everything.
It's interesting because I know there's going to be a lot of our listeners, because a lot of our listeners are from different places in the world and obviously come from all different kinds of religions. So I know this is going to really get some thoughts provoked here. So what would you say to somebody that is potentially hearing us speak like this, and how that relates to their actual religion? Because I love what you said earlier when you said you feel like all of those teachings are leading us to the same place. I come from a very, very similar belief system to that, but I'd love to know more your thoughts on that, if possible.
Yeah, without any disrespect, because as I said, we need those stepping stones. But religions, they divide. It's still division, right? We have so many and they contradict each other. And that creates conflict between people, that creates division, separation. So eventually, what I believe we are doing now collectively, we are moving towards oneness in everything. This is the nature of our spiritual evolution, of our personal evolution, of the evolution of life. We all going back to where we started from, to oneness. It's just when we get there, we're already not like a newborn child that is just born and doesn't know anything, right? But we kind of close the circle and we get back to where we started, but with a completely different understanding of this new beginning. I don't know if it makes sense what I'm just trying to, to talk here, but at some point we will, not everybody, and we don't force anybody. That's why I'm saying that meta spirituality is not for the beginners. It is for advanced spiritual seekers who tried it all and are not happy and they're still not satisfied. So if you feel that this is about you, then you are welcome. But if you feel that, no, this is not for me, I find my religion still useful. And if it's still useful, if you feel that it's helping you, it consoles you, it gives you something, that you don't need to drop it, you shouldn't. It's like a natural course of evolution. You cannot take a carrot out of the ground prematurely. It will not work. And meta spirituality will not work for those who are not intrinsically ready and looking for it. So what I will say to those people, enjoy your religion, your belief, if you can, because there will or might come a point where you can no longer enjoy it, it will stop working, and when it stops working, you will naturally start seeking for something else. And then maybe you will remember this conversation, and maybe you will be ready for meta spirituality, for a more broad approach, more holistic, in my opinion. But I don't force anybody to drop methods, practices, meditation, affirmations, visualizations, channeling, if it's still helping, because we are all on a different level and we all going through different stages of our development, and you cannot jump into the 10th grade if you're in the first, you know. So it's all good.
So it's just so powerful. It's like it's meeting people where they are, and whatever you're ready for, whatever works for you. And that is so key. Is what we say to people all the time, is there are a million different practices out there. And there's no one size fits all, and it's finding what works for you, but also what you're ready to try, what you're ready to be open to trying. And I think that's the key for anyone listening, is don't get overwhelmed by what's out there, and don't get overwhelmed by someone saying that you should do this one because it's amazing, you should do this one because it's the best one ever, or it's this new technique. And it's like, it's like, listen, go within, surrender, don't try to, don't chase it, and just listen and see what feels natural to you, see what feels good for you. And if it doesn't feel good, find something else. If it feels good and it's working, great, perfect. And I think it's so important for people to find what works for them, because everyone is unique and everyone has a different entry level point of where they want to start. Like for me, when I started my self-development journey, if anyone ever mentioned the word spirituality, war would come up. Is like, yeah, I'm not listening to you. It's like, no, that's real. It doesn't make sense. So you've got to be ready for it. You've got to be open to it, and like you said, you got to be kind of willing to try different modalities, different things to see what really resonates with you as well.
Yeah, I think the big key there is being curious, isn't it? It's like, just be curious and see where it leads you. Listen to the feelings, but also have in mind that it's quite the possibility that all these things are leading you back to the same place, which is you, right? Yeah. Right, regardless of the modality that you pick. But be curious, be open, because that's where we move into a new age, right?
Yeah. That's what I say. I'm here simply to suggest an alternative.
Yeah.
If you
exactly.
You're the one who is seeking for it, like I was seeking before, then now it's here. And if you're not, then it's totally fine.
So in the beginning of this conversation, Nina, you mentioned that you're always like looking for a solution. Do you feel like you've kind of got a solution now?
Oh yeah, and that's a very difficult concept for the mind to understand, truly, because we associate the end of learning basically with the end of growth, which is not the same. The end of learning is not the end of growth. This is an interesting concept I'll try to explain. Our mind as I said, its function is to sustain the illusion of separation. It can never feel wholeness. It's simply not its nature or its function. It doesn't have to. It's not its job to feel wholeness. Our fragmented mind cannot comprehend unity. So ego mind cannot learn, basically. So everything that we were doing before is being in our ego mind, trying to change ego mind from within the ego mind. That's what psychology does. That's what many other practices do. And it doesn't help. So when I say the end of learning is not the end of growth or expansion, is that we stop learning from the ego mind, from that identity, and we enter absolutely different phase when we become God, we become the creator, whatever word we use, we become the truth, we become the power, we become the universe and everything that there is. And from that, we keep expanding and growing, but not through learning some techniques, some methods. We just expand the understanding of who we are. We apply this understanding into every moment of our new being. So knowing who we are, having found the answer, one answer to all the questions we had before as a spiritual seeker, we now came to the end of our spiritual journey. We've known the last truth of who we are. That's it. We are spiritually accomplished. We are realized. We reached the peak of spiritual Everest, and the highest spiritual attainment a human being can possibly get into. But then this is not the end, because our mind thinks that if we find one solution or we stop our learning, that's the end. We're going to just degrade. No, this is not true. So when you find the truth of who you are, you actually start living it. You start applying it, and it's a never-ending process. But you're not learning anymore, because everything that you were meant to learn in this life is basically the truth of who you are. This is the one and only knowing and knowledge and truth you were seeking for while learning on your spiritual path. But you found the solution or the answer or the knowledge, whatever we call it. You know who you are now. Now, this is not the end. This is just the beginning. And I actually like to say that your spiritual path starts from the moment when you become enlightened, when you become aware of who you truly are. That's where your spiritual path only starts, because now you have become a conscious creator, unlike you were before. Before, you were an unconscious creator who doesn't know who he is and creates chaos as a result, unconsciously creating all sorts of chaos and struggle and all the things we see around. Once you've become a conscious creator, you now start creating mindfully, consciously. And this is a process that you will start living. And that's an interesting one. You start growing, yeah, expanding, but you are no longer learning. That's it. Life is no longer a school, but the creation of yours, conscious creation.
I believe it goes from to quite rightly what you said there, and then from creator into contributor, obviously, and that they both kind of feed into each other in some way, I think. It's wonderful.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's about experiencing yourself on a daily basis and like your true self, who you are. So yeah, you said, you stop learning and you just start experiencing every aspect of your true self. And the more you experience, the more you keep learning, the more you keep growing. And it's just such a powerful cycle that keeps going and going and going and never ends, which is awesome.
I'd love to just jump in and ask you another question here is, how do you define the truth of who you are? Do you believe that, again, is that the same for everybody in your eyes? I'd love to just see how you see that. Like, how would you define that? If somebody's listening to this and is thinking, what do you mean the truth of who I am? Like, how do you answer that?
Yeah, a difficult question to answer with our just words. But the truth of who you are is the same for everybody else. I believe that it wouldn't even be called the truth if it was different for everybody. We can have our personal partial truths about who we think we are. I am like that, I am like that, I am controlling, I am insecure, I am positive, I am good. But these are not the truth of who you are. This is just a build-up of your life experiences and ideas and beliefs. This is what we call a character. This is not truly who you are. The truth of who you are is the same for every single alive being anywhere, right? And this is the understanding that you are the creator of everything there is. Not you are as a person, but you as your true self. We have one big soul that is dispersed into billions of bodies, but we all share one higher self, or one truth, basically. These words, truth, higher self, God, the creator, universe, they're all synonyms. They're all the same. And this is truth of who we are. So I don't know if I answered your question.
You, absolutely, yeah, you definitely did. Definitely. It just popped into my mind then. There was a time I was journaling, and I had this realization. I was like, life isn't about Charlotte, it's about the I behind Charlotte, right? It's like, and I remember in that moment when I was writing that, I was like, I was like, of course, right? And I'm still well and truly on my path, and it's just, I think, important for everybody to listen in and recognize where they are, and maybe even get a bit excited about where they are heading on their spiritual path. I think that's really important, because sometimes we can talk about spirituality from a place of crisis, like you've said, but for a new age, we need to start looking at it with that curiosity and excitement.
Yes, this is a completely new, exciting process that the creator in us decided to experience. Before, it wasn't possible. Before, it was a different scenario that we as the creator were playing out. And right now, we as the creator want to have this new experience of knowing who we are while still being in a physical body. Before, it wasn't possible. Before, there was a division. We would only know who we truly are after we drop our physical body, basically after death. And right now, the creator wants us to know that we are God, but within a physical body, within a human form, and start this new process of living while knowing that. And this is something that has never happened before. So this is really exciting times ahead of all of us, because this is where everyone is going, somebody sooner, somebody later, but this is where we're heading to.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. So Nina, I just want to obviously thank you for being here today and sharing so much of your amazing wisdom with us. But before we do kind of say goodbye and leave you, have you got any final words for our listeners? Anything you think they really need to hear before we close off this episode?
Well, I can only say that if you do resonate, our word of today, if you do feel resonance with it, just please try, listen to the first introductory lecture and see if this is something you want to dive deeper into. If you don't feel resonance, please don't feel upset. It means that you're on your spiritual path. Everything will unfold in its own time. There's no need to say to yourself, oh, I'm not ready or something. This is where you're heading, no doubt, but everybody will get there in its own time. So if you feel resonance, please join us in Meta Spirituality movement. We have a really big community, a big movement, and it's an interesting and exciting process.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for asking me to do this interview. I'm very honored. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Definitely. So we will obviously post all the links that we have for you, your website, your social media, everything in the show notes so people can easily find you, and also find that free call as well on your website. Yeah, and then apart from that, I just want to say a massive thank you for being here, massive thank you for sharing everything and just having this beautiful conversation with us. It's been great to have you.
Thank you so much, guys. Was very, very happy to meet you.